Hello guys, welcome to Describely, and today I will be teaching you user authenticated system in the fast API. Okay, so there I will be using JWT, that is JSON Web Token, to create the user token. Okay, so in this tutorial, basically I will create a four API endpoints. One is slash users that can be used to register a new user account, and one is slash auth slash token that can be used to generate a new JWT token, slash auth slash refresh token that can be used to refresh the JWT token, and slash user slash me that can be used to fetch the authenticated user details. Okay, and apart from that, there are a couple of things that you will learn in this tutorial. One of them could be like how you can connect the fast API with the MySQL database. Okay, and also you will learn how you can add the middleware in the fast API. So in the last API endpoint, I will teach you how you can add the authenticated user in your request object. Sorry about that. So that whenever you need to know the authenticated user, you can fetch it from the request. Apart from that, I will also teach you how you can configure the connection pooling in the SQLAlchemy. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so I have created an empty folder, and this folder, as you can see here, if I type pwd, this is on my desktop. Okay, and there is nothing in it right now. Okay, so I'm just going to configure the application inside this folder. So for that, I'm just going to create a file, requirements.txt. Okay, so here let me copy paste all the requirements. So we'll need fast API, uvi icon, python.env to read the environment variable, identic setting to configure the application settings, passlib, this will be used to encrypt the password, python hose, this will be used to encrypt and decrypt the JWT token, and PyMySQL will be used to connect the MySQL database, and SQLAlchemy, this is the eloquent that we will be using in this fast API application. Okay, so let me save it, and let's create the virtual environment now. So for that, python 3 -m venv and venv. Okay, so our virtual environment is created here. So now let's say install the dependencies. So before that, let's activate it. Venv bin activate. Okay, so it's activated now. So let's install it. Pip install -r requirements.txt. Okay, so our application is now ready. Let's create our first route. So for that, let's create the main.py. Okay, so here let's import the fast API from fast API import fast API class. Okay, so let's create the application instance app equals to fast API instance. Okay, so now let's create our first route, that is app dot get, and we are going to say slash only, and then we will create a method def. Let's say let's call it health check. Okay, this will not receive any argument, it will just return a JSON response. So for that, let's import the JSON response class from the fast API. So fast API dot responses import JSON response. So JSON response, and here we need to provide the content. This content could be anything, but I'm going to provide the dictionary. Okay, so I will say status equals to running. So now this is done. Okay, so let me close this terminal, python terminals, and let's install the start the fast API application. So for that, we can say uvi con -m, not -m, main colon app reload. Okay, so this has now started our fast API application. We can copy. Okay, and let's open the browser. Let me create the other browsers and let's see. Okay, so this is running now. So we can see the status running. That means our FastAPI application is working. Okay. As you might already know that the FastAPI comes with pre-built documentation. Okay, so we can open the documentation of the API using /docs. Okay, so this will open the uh, Swagger documentation of the FastAPI. So as you can see, currently we have only one URL, that is / and it's a get method. And when we execute this one, we'll get the status running. Okay, that means our application is running. Perfect. So what next? Let's start configuring our application. Okay, so for that let's create a folder called core. So I prefer to keep all the configuration related things inside the core folder, because this is the that is the core of our application, right? So let's create a file here. Let's call it config.py. Okay, and in this config.py, I'm just going to put MySQL and JWT related configurations. Okay, so before that, we need to create the .env file also, so that we can put the environment variable there. Okay, so .env, and here I'm going to copy the MySQL related configuration that I have. Okay, so let's paste it here. So I have added the MySQL user, password, MySQL server, and port, and the database name. Okay, so let's now add the configuration in the config file. So for that, let me copy paste here. Okay, OS is missing, so we can say OS here. So this is the basically settings for this application that I'm going to use. I have not added anything extra except what we need in this video tutorial. So to access the setting, let me create a method called get settings, and this will just return the instance of the settings. This is a method, sorry, and we can say this will return the settings. Perfect. So now we have our MySQL related settings. We can continue working on the user registration API, right? So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create another folder here. I will call it users. Okay, and inside the users, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a couple of files. One of them would be, let's call it routes.py. So here I will be defining all the endpoints that relates to the user. Okay, so I'm just going to add the uh, router here, API router. So prefix will be users and tags will be a user again, or you can say users, whatever you like to call. And this API route will come from the FastAPI. Okay, so we can say from FastAPI import API router. Okay, so using this now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create the /users route. Okay, so since we have added the prefix here, uh, so when we create the route, we don't need to add anything there. So if we just leave it empty, that means we are calling this /users route. Okay, this status actually this will also come from FastAPI. Okay, and this is now done. Let's create the method. So async def create user. Okay, so here I'm going to receive the data from the request, and for that I will be creating a class called create user request. Okay, and I will get the DB instance as well. This DB will be coming from SQLAlchemy.orm import session. Okay, and this will be a dependency. Okay, so this will be depends, and this will depends upon, we will create a method uh, next get db, and this depends will also come from the fast api. Okay, so let's first create this db one. Okay, so let's create a database configuration in our core folder, right? So here let's create a database.py. So in this database .py, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy and paste the configuration again. Okay, so this is the configuration. So here I have imported the settings that we created in the config.py file, and I'm creating an engine, SQLAlchemy engine. So here I have added the database URL. As you can see, this URL is coming from here that we are reading from the environment variable, right? And then I'm creating a session class, and this get db, this will be a generator actually. So this what this generator does, whenever you call, right, it creates a session, and whenever you call the query, it executes the query in the session, and once the request is done, this will close this particular session. Okay, so apart from this, I have added this auto commit false. That means our this whatever we do will not be committed automatically, and auto flash is false also here. And in this engine, I have a pool pre-ping true. That means, like, whenever a connection is about to be used, that will make a dummy connection, or you can say select one to the database, just to check if the particular connection in the pool is still alive. And if it's not alive, just then that connection will be recycled. Okay, and this pool recycle, what it does, it destroys the connection after 300 seconds and recreates the connection in the pool. That means, like, your connection in the pool will be refreshed in every 5 minutes. You can change this value as per your configuration, right? This pool size is basically how many connection we are going to keep in the connection pool. And this max overflow, right, is like, let's say in a request we are making more than 5 connections, right? So in that case, your connection will overflow from what you have defined in the pool, right? So max overflow 0 means, like, once the purpose of the connection is done, your overflowed connection will be destroyed and your pool will have 5 connection only. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. So this is done now, our db is done now. So let's continue working on this one. So we need to import this get db. So we can say from core.database import get db. Okay, so we have the get db here now. I will just say pass for now. Let's create this create user request class. Okay, so for that, uh, sorry about this, I will create a file called schemas.py. So here you can create all the request classes that you will need in your application, right? So here I have added the create user request class, and I have extended the base model that is coming from the pydantic. So our request will use four input. One is first name, last name, email, and password. Okay, so let's import this class in our route file. So we can say from users, that is our users folder, dot schemas import create user request. So this is done now. And for the MySQL database, so I have already created a table. You can see the structure here. I created, added the first name, last name, email, password, is active, is verified at, registered at. You don't need this in this tutorial, but I have added this just to show you how you can validate the user. Okay, so we'll see that in the upcoming uh, when we build the user login and all. Okay, so let's continue working on this code. So to create the user account, I don't prefer to keep that in the same file, because if you have lots of route, your file will get, like, messy. So for that, I generally create a separate file for this kind of operations. So let's create a services.py file. Okay, so I'm just going to write the logic of creating the user in this one. Okay, so for this to create the user, before we can write the logic, we need to create our user model as well, right? So for that, let's create a another file called models.py. So here I'm just going to create the user model. So for that, uh, I have copied and pasted again here. So I've created a class user model, and I'm specifying the table that is users. As you can see here, this is the users table, and this has all these fields only that I have added here. So you can see first name, last name, email, password, is active, is verified, verified at, registered at, these kind of fields. Okay, so this should extend the base, and this base must come from your database configuration. So you can see I have imported it from there itself. So now we have our model class as well. So let's continue working on the service class. Okay, so in the service, I will again copy and paste. So for this, uh, create user account. So I have added a method called create user account here. What we need to do, we first need to check if the user email is already registered, right? So we will fetch the user from the db. If it's exists, then we will throw an exception that user is already registered with us. Okay, and if it's not, then we will map the request data with our model fields, and we'll say db.add. This will add the new user, and after committing, this will be persisted in the database. Then we will refresh the user and will return the same user. But there is one thing missing, that is our security, right? We have not created a method through which we can hash the password. So let's create a, in this core folder called security.py. So in this security, what we need a method. Let me rename it security, and we need a method called get password hash. Okay, so get password hash will be a simple method. We can put that there also, but I just want to put this kind of things in a separate file. Okay, so it could be like the password context dot hash. So how can we get the password context? So our password context will be uh, coming from the passlib library. Okay, so let me copy and paste that there. So passlib.context crypt context, and then we can create the password context using crypt context. So crypt context is like this. So here I have added the schema bcrypt and deprecated auto. So this will create the password context, and using this password context we can hash our password. Okay, so now we have successfully created our create user account method. So let's import this in our route. So we can say from users dot services import create user account. So we can say uh, await create user account. This will need the data equals to, we can say data, and this will require db equals to db, we can put. Okay, once the user account is created, what we need to do, we need to return a response, right? So we can just return a json response. We can say return, or we can just return the user details also, but I just want to return the json response, so I will say json. Okay, let me import the response class as well. From FastAPI dot responses import json response. So json response, sorry, not html, json response. This json response will receive a content, let's say call it payload, message payload. So this message payload, we can create a dictionary. We can say message, and this message will be user account has been successfully created. Okay, so now we have successfully created a route, that can create the user account in our DB, right? So let's refresh the page here. Okay, it's not here. Okay, so our this particular route class is not yet registered with our application. So for that, we need to import that. So we can import from users dot routes, import router, we can say as user router, and in with application we can say uh, app dot, we can say app dot include router, and then we can pass the router name, that is user router. Okay, so we have successfully registered our user router. Now let's refresh this page and see if we have got the users. So you can see the user here. So this particular user name is coming from this tag. So if we go to the this router class, so this is basically if coming from here. If I say users and if I refresh, you will see users here, and this users slash users is coming from here. If I put, let's say here slash something, whatever, let's say hello, and if I refresh, then you will see user slash hello. But since we don't want that, we just want the users only, so I will just leave it empty. Okay, and this create user is coming from this method. Whatever you name the method, that you will see there. Okay, so we have successfully created our create user method. Okay, so now let's try to create a user account and see if it's working. So we can click on the try out, and here I'm just going to put my name, that is Kesari Nandan, and I will put a dummy URL called admin@test.com, and password I will add, let's say admin at 123. Execute. So this should create the user account if everything is right. So you should see the message user account has been successfully created, right? That means our create user API is working perfectly fine. And if I go to the database and if I refresh the database, then we should see the details there. Okay, perfect. So we can see the first name, last name, email, password that is encrypted. Is active is false, is verified is false, verified it is nothing. And but we can see the created it and updated it, all those details, right? So that means our create user API is working perfectly fine. Okay, so let's now work on our slash login API. Okay, before that, let's have a look on the FastAPI official documentation, right? So under the test user guide, and inside that, if you go to the security, you will see it has very good documentation that you can use, but it's little confusing sometimes if you're not very familiar and if you are new. So what I have done, based on this documentation, I have just added some simplified the way you can work with. Okay, so I have added this methods password context as you have seen previously, and OAuth to a scheme and all these things how you can configure in your application, right? So now let's continue working on that. Okay, so as you can see in this documentation, we need to create the OAuth to a scheme, and here is the token URL. So these things we need to configure. Okay, so let's start configuring them and let's keep going. So let me close these files. So before we can start working on the login, I am just going to put some code in this security.py file. So since we have added a method get password hash, right? So this will create the encrypted password hash, right? But we also need a way to verify the password. So when the user comes to the login page and inputs their password, we need a way to verify the password. For that, I'm just going to add another method, and this will be called verify password. So this will again use the password context dot verify, and it will accept two parameters. One is the plain password, and then the hash password. So this hash password will be coming from the database, and plain password will be coming from the request. Okay, and let's create the OAuth 2 scheme. Okay, so to OAuth 2 is create the OAuth 2 scheme, we need to import some class from the fast API. One is OAuth 2 password bearer. So this will come from fast API dot security import OAuth 2 auth2 password bearer. Okay, so this class we will be using, and let's create the scheme. So auth2 scheme equals to, we can say, uh, auth2 password, and here we will say token URL. So this token URL will be uh, your token URL. So in our case, this is going to be auth/token. Okay, and this is done now. So we can continue working on our auth module. So I said auth, that means we need to create a folder called auth. Okay, and for that, let me create a folder called auth, and in this folder I will again create a file called route.py. Okay, and not a router, this will be route. So in this route.py, uh, again I will create a router. Okay, so I will say /auth, and this will be called auth, and this we can import from FastAPI import API router. Now we need to define our token route, right? So token route we can define like this: route dot post slash token, and this status we can again import from here, and we will return this 200 status code once login successful, right? So let's define a method called async def, and let's say it authenticate user, and this will receive some request data, and this request data will be coming again from the fast API. So this will be from fast API dot security import, sorry, auth2 auth2 password request form. Okay, so this will be this class, and apart from this, we need to say that this is the dependency. So we can say depends, and depends also can be imported from fast API. And apart from this, we need the DB connection, right? So we can say DB colon session, and we can say depends get DB. So we need to import the session from SQLAlchemy. So we can say from SQLAlchemy.orm import session, and this get DB will come from our core dot database import get DB. So we have successfully created now our method definition. Now what we need to return it from here, we need to return the token, right? So we can say await get token, and in this get token we need to pass the data, and we need to pass the DB, these two parameters that we are receiving from the request. Okay, so this get token method is not yet there, so we need to create a file called services.py, and in this one we need to define async def get token. This will receive two parameters that we have passed from there. For now, let's say pass. Okay, let's import this method from not this one, auth dot services import get token. Okay, so not colon, this will be equals to. So we have successfully configured our route. Okay, now let's go to the get token method and implement this. So once we get the request, right, to login, first we need to check the user. Okay, so to check the user, we need to check if the user exists or not. If user doesn't exist, we can't log in the user. So we can say db dot query, and in the query we will pass the user model that we have created in the user module. So we can say from users dot models import user model, and we can say dot filter user model dot email equals to we will be getting the user email inside the data. Okay, so let's see what are the uh, parameter of this class. So here we will be getting, if I go to this document, right, so this is the data, and if you see, we will be getting the username and password. Okay, so we need to pass the username and password, so we can use the username here. So data dot username and then first. Okay, and here we can say if not user, that means there is no user in our db with that email. We can say email is not registered with us. Okay, and let me import the exceptions. So we can say from FastAPI dot exceptions import http exceptions. So we can say user is not registered with us. That means we cannot log in the user. Okay, but if we have got the user, then what we need to do? We need to verify the user. Okay, so we can say if verify password. So this verify password we just now created in our security, right here. This will return a boolean value, either true or false, based on the uh, what user has applied. So if the password matches, it will return true, otherwise it will return false. So we can say we can import this one from core dot security import verify password. So in the verify password, we need to provide the plain password that will be coming from data dot password as a request input, and the user password user dot password, the password hash. So if this is valid, or we can say if this is not valid, we can say invalid login credential. Okay, we can say invalid login credentials. If the cursor passes this validation again, then as I said, in the db I have added the is active is verified, right? So you can add these checks as well. So let's for that, let me create a separate method here. Let's call it def underscore verify user access. This should receive a parameter called user model, and here uh, we can check if the user is active or not. We can check if the user is verified or not. So I'm just going to copy and paste the code here. Okay, so we can say something like this: if the user is not active, that means we can say user account is inactive, please contact support. And if the user account is not verified, then we can say your account is unverified. Here let's say you have implemented a user account verification email, right? So if the user account is not verified and user is trying to log in, so you can here write a method trigger user account verification email. Okay, and you can say your account is unverified, we have resend the user we have resend the account verification email. It's up to you how you want to implement. Some of the people implement in a way like your email has to be verified first, but some of the user implement in a way like you log in to the platform. You can log into the platform, but there is some limitation, and there is a banner showing up like your account is unverified, something like that. So it's up to you how you want to configure. I'm just giving you some idea how you can achieve these kind of things. Okay, so now we can call it this method here, verify user access, and we can pass the user equals to user. Okay, so if anything goes wrong, this will throw an exception, or your code execution will stop it here. So you don't need to put any if or anything else here. So if everything goes fine, then we need to return the token, right? So we can say return, and we right now I'm just going to put a just empty string there, and we can say return access token and refresh token. Okay, so now we need to write the logic how we can generate the JWT token, correct? So for that, before that, let me create a separate method here, private method. We can say get user token. Why I am doing this? Because this method I will be using uh, when we create the refresh token API. So I will be using the same method in that case also. So this will receive the user model, and we can also, if we are working in the refresh token API, then we have the refresh token. So we can say refresh token none here. So if we have the refresh token, we don't need to generate that. We can return the same one. And if we don't have, then we need to generate this. Okay. So for this, before creating, let's decide what we are going to put in the JWT payload, right? So we can create a method payload, and in this payload, for now, I'm just going to put the ID that will be the user dot ID. So this will the payload is dictionary, but you, if you like to put anything else, let's say you want to put the user email, I wouldn't recommend that. But some other information, if you would like to put the in JWT token, you can put that in this dictionary, and this will be persisted in the JWT token when it's created. Okay, so this is done now. Apart from this, let's go to our config file and see what we have added there. We have not added anything, right? So to create the JWT token, we need a couple of things. Like, one is the JWT secret, one is the encrypting algorithm that we are going to use, and one is how long our token is going to be alive, right? The TTL of the JWT. So for that, I'm just going to copy and paste couple of environment variable here in this config file. Okay, so this is going to be let me put it here. So this will be JWT secret. So I've added some dummy secret. If you don't provide from the environment variable, this will be used. Algorithm, if you provide any algorithm, then it's fine. Otherwise, this HS256 will be used. And JWT token expire in minutes, you can add it in your env. Otherwise, it will be 60 minutes. Okay, so your token should expire in 60 minutes. So these are the variable that I will be using. And what else? So let me close this file. Route auth2. Okay, this is not required. So let's go to the services. Let's continue working on this get user token method. Okay, so here we have now we have added our expiry, right? So we need to uh, import that. So we can say settings equals to get settings, and this get settings will be imported from core.config import get settings. Now using this, we can get our expiration time. So for that, we can create the access token expiry, and this will be time delta. Let's import this. So from date time import time delta. Okay, so we can say time delta. That means this will use the current time and then the time that we specify. So let's say mi minutes equals to uh, the token expiry that we have added in the environment variable. So this will be settings dot access token expiry in minutes. Okay, so now we have our expiry also. We need a way to create the access token and the refresh token, right? So let's say access token is this, and refresh token is this. Okay, and once we have both, we can return the response. So for that, let's create the access token method and the secret token method. So create access token and create secret token, I'm just going to put that in our security folder, security file. So here I will define a method, async def create access token. Okay, so this will receive the payload, you can say, and expiry. Okay, so this expiry is going to be time delta. I'm adding this so that uh, by mistake from date time import time delta. So this will be an instance of time delta. Okay, so now we have our payload, we have our expiry time. So we can say like let's call it data, and then we can say payload equals to data dot copy. So we are creating a copy of the data that we have provided, and we will be adding couple of more things here. So expire in, so the expire in going to be date time that we need to import first. Date time means current time, date time whatever is the current time, so we can say UTC now, and plus we need to add this time delta that we are getting from there. Okay, so we now have our expiry time, right? So we can update this in our payload. So we can say payload dot update, and in the update will we can say like exp, and we can say expire in, expire in. So this will be our token expiry time, and we can say token equals to, now we can say JWT, and this JWT is not imported, so we can import this JWT from Jose import JWT. Okay. So we can say JWT dot encode, JWT dot encode, then we can say payload, whatever payload we want to encode, and then we can say settings dot JWT. As you can see, this will be the secret, so we can say JWT, yes, secret. I'm not sure if this is the variable, so let me make sure. So we can say from core dot config import get settings, and we can say settings equal to get settings, and then okay, so this was the variable, and then we need the algorithm that we are going to use. Okay, so algorithm, we can say algorithm, this will be a list, so we can say settings dot JWT algorithm. So we have configured our secret, our algorithm, and this payload will be encoded using this secret and this algorithm, right? So that means your token is secure. Okay, and we can return this token. So instead of saving this, we can directly return this token. So we have added a method called create access token. So this is now done. Let's add another method called create refresh token. This will again receive the data, and this will be a very simple method. This will be also a JWT token, but we don't need to add the expiry and all in the refresh token. So we can directly say data JWT secret and JWT algorithm. If you'd like, you can add another secret, different secret for uh, refresh token, or different algorithm for the refresh token, but I'm just going to keep it simple here. So we have successfully added the create access token and create refresh token. So we can import this in our service. So from here we can say from core dot security import create access token, create refresh token. Okay, so we can say create access token. This will receive the data, that is our payload. The second parameter, it will receive the expiry, so this is this one. For the refresh token, if not a refresh token, that means if the refresh token is not provided, then only we need to create the refresh token, right? So we can say refresh token is equal to create a refresh token, and this will just receive the payload, that that is our payload. So if you want to put any other things in your refresh token, you can put it, but for the simplicity I'm not going to change this. Okay, so we have our access token, we have our refresh token, right? So let's return this. So in the fast API we can also create a response class. Okay, so I'm just going to sorry, here I'm just going to create a file called uh, not folder, sorry, responses.py. So in this one I'm just going to create a structure for the token, so that will be like this. So from pydantic import base model, and this token response will have access token, refresh token, token type, that is going to be the bearer, and the expiry time. Okay, so let's return this one here, return token response, and we can import it from auth.responses import token response. So this token response will have access token equals to access token, refresh token equals to refresh token, expires in equals to uh, access token expiry in seconds. I'm just going to return that in seconds. Okay, so here I can put comment in seconds, so this time delta will be converted into in seconds. Okay, and fourth parameter type, token type bearer, I'm not going to provide, as the default value is the bearer, so it's fine. So we have successfully added our get user token method, and this will be the refresh token, sorry. So this is now done. Here we can now return this method. Okay, get refresh token, and we can pass the user equals to user, and we don't have the refresh token, so it's fine. Create a user access token, we have added the async, so we need to add the await here. We can add the await, but to add the await we also need to make this async. So this is done now, and here when calling we can say await. So now user token API is also done. Let's check it. Let's check this. So token is done here. We are getting the token, perfect. And let's see if we have registered this. So in the main we have not yet registered, right? So we need to import that from auth dot routes import router. We can say token router or auth router, whatever you would like, and we can register this. So now this is registered. If we go to our Swagger and we refresh the page, now we should see the auth slash token. Okay, so we have our slash auth slash token here, and we can also see the create user request will take these four parameters. Authenticate user will take username and password. If validation error happens, then what will be the response type? HTTP validation error happens, then what will be the response? These kind of things we can see it here. It was not in the previously when we started this video tutorial, but it's there now. So we have created the user here, and let's try to log in now. Okay, so to log in we can click on the try, and here we can add the email. So let me remember the email. So this is admin@test.com. So this is the email, and password was admin@123. Okay, so let me try and see if this working. Internal server error. So something went wrong. Let's see. Object has no attribute query. Okay, so let's see what went wrong. Data equal. Okay, here we should pass the db instead of data. So this was the typo. Let's try it again. If I click execute, your account is inactive. So now you can see, like since it's is active is 0, that's why you are getting this message. If I make it 1, so your account is activated now. If I try it again, this will say your account is unverified. Please, we have resent a account verification email. So that means if you would like to configure your email verification thing there, you can configure it. But for now, I'm just going to make it 1. So now user is active and verified as well. If I click on execute, again some error occurs. Unhashable type list. Algorithm is not a list. This will be a string. So that's why this error is coming. So let me just remove this and save this file. Okay, and let's go to this page again. Let's try. So email is our admin@test.com. Password is admin@123. Okay, so execute. So as you can see now, we have got our access token as well as the refresh token. So if I open the access token, let's see what is there in the token. So we can go to jwt.io. Okay, so here we can paste our token. So you can see currently the payload has ID, that is 1, and the expiry that we have added. So we have added 1 hour expiry. So it's 4/7 that is going to expire. And you can see, like currently in my local time zone, it's a 3/7. So just after 1 hour. Okay, so that means our token API is perfectly working now. So now let's continue working on our refresh token API. Okay, so for the refresh token API, we need to add the refresh token here in this route file. Okay, so for that we can say /refresh. Okay, and again we are going to return the 200 codes. We can say again a method name async def, and this will be refresh access token. Refresh access token, and this refresh token actually going to receive the refresh token that was sent during the login, right? So we can say refresh token, and this will be a str, and this will come in the header. So we need to import the header. So if you want to get this token as a body parameter, you can get it, but I would prefer this in the header. So we can say header, and what else we need? We need the db. So again we can say db session and depends get db. Okay, so similar to get token, we are going to create a method called get refresh token. Get refresh token, this will accept the token, that is the refresh token, and db. Okay, so let's go inside the service and create a method here. Let me call it async def and get refresh token. So this will have two parameter, token, and another one is db. Okay, so we have got the token, right? But we need the token payload. Okay, so since we have added the user id in the token, so we don't know, like when we create the token, we need the user detail, right? So to get the user detail, we need to decrypt the refresh token and get the user ID from there. So for that we need the payload. So to get the payload, uh, what we can do, let's add another method in the security, and this method is going to be get token payload. Okay, so this get token payload is something like this. Get token, we can import this JWT error from JWT. So this is now this will return us the token payload. So let's import this method in our service. So we can say get token payload, and here we can say get token payload. We can pass the token. Okay, now we have our token payload. We need to extract the user ID from there. We can say user ID equals to payload dot get, and we can say ID, and this none. We can say if not user ID, that means if the token doesn't have the user ID, then that means like this is not a valid token. So we need to throw an exception like in invalid refresh token. Okay, and after that we can fetch the user detail. So we can say user equals to db dot query user model and filter by the user ID. Okay, again if there is no user exist with this ID that we have got in the token, that means this token is invalid. So we can say invalid refresh token again. And if we have got the user detail, that means we can now create the user access token. So we can just return await and this method uh, get user token. Okay, so we can just return this method await get user token. We can pass the user equal to user, and here we have the access token. So we don't want to generate a new access token. We can say uh, sorry, refresh token. So we can say refresh token equal to token that we have received. So this API should be working now once we import this method. So this is imported now, and now let's go and refresh our Swagger doc. Before that, let's copy this refresh token that is generated. So I have copied it, and let me refresh. So we should see the refresh token here. Okay, and if I click on the tryout, if I paste the token refresh token that I copied previously, click on execute. So this should be working, but it says internal server error. Okay, let's see what is the error now. Where it is not associated with a value, cannot access variable. This is in the services file line number 82. Line number 82. 82. That means cannot access local variable refresh token where it is not associated with a value. Why? Oh, there was actually a typo. Let me make it correct. So this should be fine now. If I click on execute, again some issue, user token got an. Okay, so we have renamed it. So there also we need to put the correct name. Okay. So let's click on the execute again. Okay, perfect. So now this our refresh token API is also working, and we can see the new access token and this refresh token. So if you click on the execute again, you should see a new refresh token. So ASVQ is the last character. So if I click on this, you can see that QXNM. So now our refresh token API is perfectly working. Okay. So what else left? So now we need to create another API that is user slash me. Okay. Okay, so I'm inside the users folder and inside the routes file. Okay, so here we need to add another route, that is slash me. Okay, so let's create that. So we can say router dot post, and we can say slash me. You can also add the get one, doesn't matter. uh, I mean, it will work in both the cases. Okay, so here I'm going to use the same status code, not same, going to return the 200 status code. So I'm just going to say 200. Okay, and I'm going to return a response. Let's not write it just now. So I will write a method called def get user detail. Okay, so this will receive only one argument, that is the request, and this request will be coming from FastAPI. Okay, request, and I can just say return request dot user. Okay, so basically this will be our way of returning the logged in user, but it might not be working at this moment. So let's try if and see if this is working. Okay, so let me just refresh this, and if I click on try now, internal server, you will get some error. And if you see the logs, authentication middleware must be installed to access the request user. Okay, that means we have need to install this authentication middleware. So let's do that. So for that we need to go to the main. Okay, and here we need to install the authentication middleware. Okay, so this authentication middleware actually comes from the starlet package. So we can just import it from starlet.middleware authentication middleware, and we can say here, we can say add middleware app dot, and add a middleware, I think, yes, add middleware, and then we can say authentication middleware, and this authentication middleware will take another thing that will be called backend. Okay, and this backend that we need to create. Okay, so I'm just going to create a JWT auth actually, since we are using the JWT token. So we will be using the JWT auth as a backend. So this I will create inside the security. So I can just import it from here. So core dot security import JWT auth, but this class is not there. So let's go to JWT. Let's go to the security and create this class. Okay, so inside the core security, let's create this class JWT auth. Okay, and this what this class is going to have. So actually this class will have only one method, that will be authenticate. Okay, so as soon as the request comes to the fast API, that authenticate method will be executed, and there we need to return the user if the user is logged in. Okay, so we need to write our custom method. So we can say async def authenticate. Okay, so this we need to do, and this by default this receives the connection, or you can say HTTP connection. Okay, so this method receives the HTTP connection. So I'm just going to create, if the user is not logged in, then what we need to return. That means because this will be executed with every request, right? And not all the requests will have the access token. So in that case, we need to return something else, and that will be that I'm going to call it guest. So I can say like guest equals to, and we need to import a couple of classes, and these classes will come from the starlet package. So we can import it. So these classes will be like uh, auth credentials and unauthenticated user. Okay, so these two classes we need. So for this, so let's continue. So we can say auth credentials, and this credentials will accept a list, and in this list you can say if the user is authenticated or not. So I'm just going to say unauthorized. Okay, and then return the unauthenticated user as a object. So whenever we return the guest, then our request will have the information that it's not authenticated, and it will have a, when we call the request.user, it will have the unauthenticated user model. Okay, so this is done now. Now we need to write the implement the method. So for this I'm just going to check if our request have the authorization header. Okay, if authorization header is there in the connection, so we can say, so I'm just going to check the reverse thing. If authorization header not in the connection header, that means http request headers, then I will just return the guest. That means we need to we need not we should not do anything because this header is not present. That means user is not logged in. If this header is present, then we need to extract the token from there. So we can say token equals to connection dot headers dot get, and what we want to get, we want to get authorization. Okay, and then authorization headers, so the token will come in the form of, let's say, something like this: bearer, bearer, then space, then token hash, right? So we need to extract this hash because this is our actual token, not this one. So for this, I'm just going to do the split, and split based on the space, and I'm just going to take the uh, last value, that is the there will be two value in the list, so I'm just going to take the last one, this token. Okay, so now we have the token, and we can check again. If we don't get the token, then what should do? If there is no token, then we can again return the guest. But if we have the token, then we need to get the user. Okay, so we need to get the user. So user we can get from the token, so we need to write a method to get the user from the token. Okay, so for that let me create a method here, and this will be let me copy and paste this method and explain this to you. So basically, let me import the other things that is required. What we need the user model, get db, and depends. Okay, so from FastAPI import depends from core dot not code core dot database import get db from users dot models import user model. Okay, so we have imported all those things. So get current user, what it will do, so we'll get the token. Okay, and using this token we will get the payload in this method that we had created previously, and we will check if the payload is a dictionary. Okay, if this is not dictionary, then we'll return none. That means we don't have any user. And if it's a dictionary, then we'll check if the id is there. If there is no id, that means we cannot get the user. And once we have got the id, we will fetch the user detail, and we will return this user. Okay, this is like when we are calling the method from here, we don't have the db connection, right? So for that we can get the db connection using the next. So we can say db equals to next, and then we can call the get db. This will give us a session, database session. Okay, so we can get the user from here. So we can say user get user, and we need to pass the token equals to token, and again we can check if not user, then return the guest, and if we have the user, then we need to return the auth credentials, and here we can say authenticated, and we can return the user here. So this response will be a tuple. Okay, so this is now implemented in our main.py. Let's save it. So this is now saved, and we have successfully created this one. Let's go and refresh our documentation. So if I refresh, if I click on try, click on execute. So currently I'm not getting any response. It's returning, but it's returning an empty body. So why this is happening? Okay, so this is happening because of one reason, that is, if I go to the routes, we are calling the routes, but we are not defining any dependency here, right? So this particular route doesn't is not aware about the token. Okay, so to make it aware about the token, what we can do, here we can create another router. Okay, so we have created one route, we can create a user route. So that means this whatever we define, whenever we define a route using this one, that means we are saying that the user has to be authenticated. And how we can make sure that user has to be authenticated? To do that, we need to add one dependency here, one or more than one, whatever you would like to add. So we can add dependencies, and these dependencies will depends, and this will depends upon the auth2 scheme. So in the security module, if you see the auth2 scheme, here we are calling the token. That means this particular route will depend upon this token. That means it should receive, it's this those routes should have a token. Okay, and that must be generated using this url. Okay, so this is some things, security related things. So let me import it from core dot security import, and what we are going to report, auth2 scheme. Okay, so this will depend upon the uh, auth2 scheme, and we need another dependency, that is, we also need to extract the user, right? So once the request comes, first we will make sure that user has the token, and second we will in stack the user from the sorry, we will extract the token from the request, and we will add the user into the request. So for that, we can add the dependency get current user. So we can say get current user like this. So now whenever a request comes using this router, this will have the user, and this will make sure request has a token. Okay, so let's change the router to user router. Okay, and let's refresh now. Okay, so currently it's not there because we have not added this user router in our application. So we can do that by saying user router is already there. We can change it to guest router, actually guest router, and we can say user router. So let me copy sorry, let me copy and paste there, guest router. So this should be fine now. So if I refresh, you should see the url that needs the authentication lock is there, right? So that means to access this url, you need to provide the token. So if I provide the token by saying db, let me see, something is wrong, I guess. Security get current user db equals to none. Db equals to none, it shouldn't be asking about the db. This depends upon both two schemes, and this tv payload. So actually this is coming from here. So if I remove this and if I refresh, so you can see the log here. Okay, and if I try it, okay, without logging in, you will see not authorized. So that means to access this particular route, we need to be authorized. So to get authorized, we can say like here admin, sorry, it was very quick. So once we have added that, right, dependency, we should see authorized button here. So from here, we need to log in to access any URL that has this lock. Okay. So to log in, we can click on the button and we can enter our username and password. So admin at test.com, and we can say password. Sorry, something is suggesting. This is making it very hard. I don't know why. Okay, let me open this in another browser. Why this is happening? Be saved. Choose my own password. Okay. So admin at the rate test.com and admin at 123. If I click on authorize, you can see that I am logged in. And if I close this one and if I go to this URL, not now, if I execute, I should see the user details. Okay, so now this particular URL is working, but you can see that uh, currently I can see the password as well, password hash as well, but I don't want that, right? So for that, what I'm going to do, in the me, I'm just going to return add a response model, and this will be user response. So using this response model, you can define what are the fields that you want to return. So I don't have any file called responses, so I'm just going to create a responses.py, and here I'm just going to copy and paste the response user response class. Okay, so it's this one. So here I'm saying that from attribute true, that means from the model. From attribute means from model. I'm just going to pick the fields, and arbitrary type allowed, that means here I'm adding the date time, right? So this is not coming from the typing or pydantic, right? So this is an arbitrary type, so I'm just saying that allow these kind of things also. Okay, so that's why I have added these two configuration, and let's import this. So we can say like from users dot responses import user response. I don't need this current users, and I this is imported now, and let's save this. And if I execute this, you should see only limited fields that I have allowed there, that is ID, first name, last name, email, and registered date. Okay, so if I go to this response class, you can see these 5 fields are allowed. Okay, so this means like we have successfully completed our this tutorial. We have created a users API that can be used to create a new user account. Okay, we have created a slash auth slash token that can be used to generate a new token, and auth slash refresh can be used to refresh the token, because your token expires in every 60 minutes, right? So you need a new token in every 60 minutes. So in your front end, you can put a logic like after let's say 55 minutes or 58 minutes, this URL will be called and it will get a new token. And then we have created slash user slash me. So this slash user slash me is basically getting the token from getting the user detail from the token that you are passing in the request. This is not directly fetching from the database. Okay, and anywhere using this method, so you can just accept the request in your URL, and you can pass to your services and wherever you want to use the user detail, logged in user detail. So you will be having those. So I hope this makes sense to you, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will put this code on a GitHub, and I will add the link in the description. Okay, and if you like this video course, I would request you to like and share and subscribe the channel. This keeps me motivated to create more videos like this. Okay, thank you so much.